Good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? Great! Well, today we are coming to you from Benton, Arkansas, and today we are going to do one of my all-time favorite movies, Sling Blade, the movie that put Billy Bob Thornton on the map. Billy Bob Thornton acts, directs, and wrote this. You see John Ritter in a way you've never seen, and I don't think Dwight Yoakam could be any more dislikable. Today we're going to see what's left of the Sling Blade locations from 1996. Daze with Jordan the Lion. It begins right now. Welcome to historic downtown Benton. You belong here. Does Carl belong here?
Yep, he's a good boy. He likes French fried potatoes.
All right, let's go start this day. Let's go explore Benton. So if you've never seen Sling Blade, basically the story that sets this up is that Carl, when he was a young boy, he was born a little bit slow, and his parents decided they didn't want to treat him like a normal boy, so they built a shed, made him sleep in the shed out back, and basically treated him like an animal. One night he hears a bunch of noise coming from the house and sees a boy that he hates inside having his way, as he says, with his mother. So he goes in with a Kaiser blade. Some people call it a sling blade. He called it a Kaiser blade, and ends up killing the boy. When his mother gets upset that he killed him, it makes Carl mad, almost madder, because he realizes then that she was okay with what was going on. So he ends up killing her and gets sentenced to a state hospital, and now has served his time, is being released, and is being sent back to the town that he was from. Okay, so our first location of the day was a little bit tricky because it no longer exists. Where you want to start to find it is the Municipal Complex, because they used to have a bus station that was right there. Because if you go over here and match up the shot from across the street, take a look at this. So this is what our shot would have been. The building in the middle wouldn't have even been there. You can see the building all the way on the right and the building on the left, and there would have been like a little, I don't know, like a little silver box generator type thing where the tree is. But we also see Carl right here, standing right here, right after getting dropped off at the bus station. And if I had a different lens, you'd see that the courthouse little steeple that's over here is in fact over there. So you can even see the driveway is still here from the bus station. The building right here is still here. Even the telephone pole. And that building over there, just that one wasn't here. Welcome back to town, Carl. And there's the court steeple I was telling you about. You would have seen it over top of that building far to the right. Now another one of our establishing shots when Carl enters town is right here. I'll do a matchup of what it used to look like, but we see Carl walking right here along the sidewalk for just a couple of seconds, kind of showing that he's new in town or back in town. He doesn't know anybody, doesn't have anywhere to go. Here we are. For a brief moment we see this. But when we see it, it looks like this. It's the barber shop that he comes and stands in front of. You notice where they have the Hello Beautiful sign? In the matchup shot in the movie, that's where the air conditioner would have been. Too bad we don't see him get a haircut. He already has a pretty good one going into it, but you do see him stand here, look in the window, and then walk off towards us. So the barber shop was right there, and then we also have a scene during that whole montage of him entering town where he's right over here walking down this side of the street. The way you can match it up are these two boxes right there. You can see those in the shot, and you can see those little planter things right there in the shot when he's walking towards us. Now this in the movie we also see for just a few seconds, but this is when Carl's walking around town, and in the movie it would have said police building up here. Carl's actually standing right over here where this truck is. You can see the drainage right there. Everything still matches up. They don't say anything here. Like, he doesn't say anything, but we get that moment, kind of like Shawshank Redemption, when Brooks gets released from prison. You realize it only takes him a couple of hours or a couple of days of being out before he realizes he's kind of like ready to go back in. So I think that's what they're alluding to here. While Carl's standing right here, he's kind of thinking, he wonders if he should belong in there or if he should just go commit a crime so he can go back where he came from. He's just not used to being on the outside. So just a brief little shot, but looks pretty similar. Didn't have the awnings and stuff because this is the South Central Arkansas Transit building. But in the movie, it would have been the police building. Kind of almost seems fitting that it's like misty and drizzly out today. So right here we are at the stone for the Desoto Trail. This was also a filming location. You didn't see this in the movie, but where this gas station is used to be the vacuum store. The way you can match it up is you can see this light right here. When Carl comes up, the vacuum store was basically right over here. So we could do it kind of from right here on the other side of the rock. And that's where the gorilla is standing, and he walks up and squeezes the gorilla's nose. But the vacuum shop would have been right here. It's kind of interesting, about half the locations are still here and about half of them are gone. So this is a little bit of a bummer, because right here on this plot of land was where the Frosty treat was, the Frosty cream stand. He comes walking up to it, and Jim Jarmusch, the director, is actually the actor working behind the counter. The way that you can tell this was the location is because when Carl is standing at the window talking and asking questions, trying to make an order, when they do the turnaround shot, you can see that building behind him. That's always over his shoulder. So sadly, the Frosty cream is gone, but this is where we get our epic moment of Carl trying to order food, asking him what's good. The guy says, I don't know, you know, the French fries are pretty good. Carl says, French fry potatoes? How much? The guy tells him it's 60 cents for a medium or 75 cents for a large. Carl says, okay, I'll take the big one. Then he becomes obsessed with eating French fries throughout the rest of the movie. That, and he likes his mustard and biscuits. Now we are heading to one of my favorite locations from the movie. This is where Frank and Carl meet. Hey, nice horse. Well, here we are over at what was in the movie the Econo Wash. You can see this is also changed. It's still a laundry, but it's changed. It doesn't have the point to it that it did right there. And the two, well, I guess they still are there. I was gonna say they're gone, but you can see the air conditioners are still up there. On the very top, there's one over here and one over there. That red awning wasn't here, but there was a sign that said Econo Wash right there. So this was where Carl is sitting right up here by the doors because he still doesn't know anybody, doesn't have anywhere to go. All right, so right here is where Carl is sitting after he's got his French fry potatoes. And he sees the boy come walking out of those doors with bags of laundry. And that's when they start talking, and the boy tells him that he's doing the laundry to help out his mom. Carl says, don't you have a mom or a daddy? And Frank says, well, my daddy killed himself. My mom works all the time, so I'm trying to help her out. So
That's when Carl offers to help him take his stuff home. The boy says he lives about a half mile. So Carl says he'll help him out unless he gives out, unless his body gives out on the way. So they pick up the bags of laundry and start walking to Frank's house.
He's a good boy.
All right, now we're back at the bank. You're going, what? We were already here. You already did this location. You already told us about the Frosty treat. I know, but what I didn't know was that right next to it was where Bill Cox's outfit was. So Bill's place was actually just to the left. So the Frosty treat place would have been right over here, and Bill's shop would have been right here. So if you remember, the whole reason he ends up working here, Carl ends up here, is because his first trip to town, he doesn't like it. So he hops on a bus and goes back to the hospital and tells him there, you can't stay here. Carl just wants to go back into the hospital. But he knows that Carl's really good with small engines, like lawnmower engines and things like that. So he gets him a job here in town for Bill Cox. So right here on this corner was where Bill Cox gave him a job, gave him a place to sleep originally, gave him some money in his pocket, told him a pretty bad joke about a feller from Arkansas, I reckon. But yeah, this was where Carl worked, and eventually where Carl comes back to sharpen that blade. Everything around here has kind of changed. We're gonna head over to the Wheatley house, the boys' house. Well, we see the boys walking towards us because you can match up the telephone poles, the distance between the poles over here, and someone has removed the Vine Street sign. That's how you can tell it's on the corner of Vine. But you do definitely see the fire hydrant every time Carl either comes here alone or comes here with the boy. He is always seeing that. We always see that in the shot. So there is the Wheatley house. That is so cool to see. A lot of the shots are kind of zoomed in while Carl's up there standing at the door. He drops off the boy and the laundry that one time, and then the kid says, if you ever want to come back and play football with us, we play football. And so Carl just comes back here, and instead of knocking on people's doors, he just stands at the door until they know he's there. So we see him standing up there quite a few times. But what's interesting, what's really cool is when they walk like beside the house like this, you can see that the number's kind of bent now, but you can see that in a lot of the shots, the 522. That is in a lot of the shots when they're walking by, or there's a part where Carl and Linda are talking, you can see it matched up in there. That is definitely the house. It's sad because she, in the movie, has a horrible boyfriend played by Dwight Yoakam, Doyle Hargreaves, and he's just an absolute monster. We can see if you go around the tree and everything, you can see, that's where we see Carl coming out of in the movie. It's like the shack that Frank wants him to move into. Of course, he asks his mom if good old Carl can move in when they first meet him, not knowing even what he had done. But they love Carl. They end up really liking Carl, and Carl moves in, supposed to be living in the shack out back and everything. We see this a couple of times when Doyle decides he wants to throw a party at night and decides to have the band members come over. They didn't have a wraparound porch for this, so they actually, I believe what I read is that they used one of the houses just around the corner because it had a wraparound. It was a night shot, so nobody would notice. We'll go see if we can find that. Wow, that's just so cool to see that 522 there because it's in the movie so much. But we see Doyle decides he's gonna move in for good at one point here and tells Carl he's not welcome to live here anymore. Tells Carl to move out. And that's when Carl starts brewing his plan. And we do see some shots where they're leaving. Frank and Carl are leaving and walking up this sidewalk together. Do see that. Let's see if I can match that up for you here. But we see when Carl starts thinking, he realizes that this Doyle guy's awful, and he thinks about what Vaughn said about protecting Linda and Frank.
Boy.
That's when we see Carl concoct his plan, and he starts sharpening the lawnmower blade and then walks in this house one last time. And Doyle is sitting in there in a chair. Says, I thought I told you to move out, get out. Then he looks at the piece of metal in his hand. He says, what are you doing with the lawnmower blade there, Carl?
I'm fixing to kill you.
And then he stands up and just buries that blade in Doyle's head twice. And we see that Carl then returns to the state hospital. He gets what he wanted, or got what he wanted all along. Made a friend, got to have some experiences playing football, being a young boy. Since he went to the hospital when he was 12, he never got that experience of being like a real boy. So he got all of that. And then for his one friend that was in trouble, he was able to protect him and his mother in the end by taking out the one bad person in their life. So cool. I love this movie. So cool to see this is still here. And those pillars are very prominent. Every time they go walking off, you see those pillars. It is so crazy to see the Sling Blade house for me. Such a good movie.
Now there's a point where Frank wants to introduce Carl to his mother and tells him that she's at work, and so they're going to go down to the dollar store. And Carl says, we shouldn't bother your mother with meeting somebody while she's working. But then he thinks, I do need some stuff, because the guys at Bill Cox told him get some soap and some toothpaste and things like that. So let's go over to Hoochies.
So this was actually the interiors for Hoochies dollar store. It did never show the exteriors, but the interiors were here. So you can see since then they have split it into two. One side is the pharmacy and one side is a family clinic. But we see them come in through that door. There would have originally been like a counter right up here that they worked. And you can see that the brick pillars that we keep seeing, you can kind of see from out there. They were brown at the time, but they're still there. So it's in here that they first meet Carl. John Ritter's in here with Linda, Frank's mom, and they come in here, and while Frank's off talking to his mom, Vaughn finds out that Carl's from the area. And he says he hasn't been here in a long time. And Vaughn says, why'd you come back? He got released from the state hospital. He said, they turned me loose at the state hospital. And Vaughn says, is that so? Then you eventually find out that the little boy Frank is off asking his mom if he can have Carl live with them in that back shed. So it's crazy, but like I said, they split it in half. So some of the shots you'll see these doors behind Carl, and then when they do the turnaround shot to show Vaughn, it's the pharmacy side. So here's the other section of the store. So when you got your turnaround shots, you'd have that over Vaughn's head, and before that wall was there, that would have been the rest of the dollar store. Nice of them to let me film inside too. Medical places, you never know. They could have very easily said, no way. So after Vaughn, played by John Ritter, has first met Carl, he says he wants to have lunch with him. And so they end up meeting up here for lunch for a little conversation. You never see the outside of this place, but you see a Gary's menu on their table. That's how I was able to figure out where it is. Let's go match up where they sat and what they talked about. Even says taters and mustard up here. Here it is. Wow, this is really, really cool to see. It was actually this booth right here. John Ritter is sitting right over here. Billy Bob Thornton as Carl is sitting right here. The Sunday art that you see, when you get an over the shoulder shot of Carl, it's actually right up in there. And then when you get the over the shoulder shot of John Ritter, there were like some trays and things up on the wall. But what you'll notice is they have a picture from Sling Blade up there now, as well as a poster. So right here, I mean, you can see Carl's head right here. John Ritter's telling him that his own family was always pretty horrible and that he never liked him, and that he considers Linda and Frank as his family. And he says, you know, Carl, even though we may not look like it, we're both very similar because we're different. He said, maybe in different ways, but, well, I'm just going to come right out and say it. Carl, I'm gay. And Carl just doesn't even bat an eye, and he says, Carl, do you know what that means? You don't mean funny ha, you mean funny queer. And that's when John Ritter says, that's very offensive, Carl. He says, well, what I want to talk to you about is, I just want to make sure that you're not going to ever hurt Linda or Frank. And he says, Carl says he would never hurt them. And that's also when Vaughn warns him about Doyle, Linda's boyfriend who hates Frank and who's just a bad guy all the way around. Warns him of how bad he is and he doesn't trust him, and that he wants Carl to help keep an eye on him, basically. There you go, there's Billy Bob. That's one of the scenes when he's getting released from the state hospital. There's Carl and Frank. Kind of crazy to be sitting here. I guess I could be ordering some French fried taters. Sitting in Carl's spot. Alright, we're going to try for one last location. This is a real Hail Mary. I have no idea really where to start. Well, I kind of have an idea where to start, but we'll see. So as best as I can tell, the location of where Carl and Frank used to meet up and talk and look at the water was actually on private property right down here. Would have been right below us. That's where he tells him that he lied and that his dad didn't accidentally die or get hit by a train, that he committed suicide by shooting himself. And that's when Carl also tells him to take care of himself, look after his mother and everything. Kind of alludes that something's going to happen. Carl's going to do something. So that would have been the water scenes down there. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed our day here in Benton, Arkansas. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to finally see all the locations from Sling Blade. I hope you did too. If you haven't seen Sling Blade in a long time, go watch it. Really, really good movie. Well acted, very well written. And there's a rumor, I'm not sure if it's true, but that they filmed a sequel this past summer here in Benton. So hopefully that's the case. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time. Have a great night and goodbye.